Really?
What?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Oh, see, this is where we never know the actual story.
Yeah, then
Anna
that
was
makes
sitting
me
on that
have
one. Look
so
at her
many
face.
questions.
Yeah.
You saved that until now?
I wasn't going to bring it up. I didn't think it didn't seem to pertain to the case much.
Welcome to Spedsplaining, where special education gets decoded one case at a time. I'm Stefan, a former classroom teacher and current instructional coach, and I'm joined by three brilliant minds in special education, Darcy, Anna, and Leanne. Each week, they take real stories, often from right here in Washington, and break them down into plain language. We use these stories as a launch pad to explore the wild, wonderful, and sometimes frustrating world of general and special education. Whether you're an educator, parent, advocate, or just curious about how the system really works, we've got you. Let's dive in.
This case is actually from California. So when we were talking about a therapeutic placement, that this, like previously we've talked about a therapeutic placement, this one is the complete opposite and is fully a therapeutic placement. And it just like made me think about what is so different in different areas of our country, or can be very different in different areas of our country. So when this case starts, we have a 6th grade student. Parents requested an eval for their daughter that's experiencing a lot of social, emotional, and behavior challenges. So they listed self-harm behaviors, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and class avoidance. So she's found eligible for an IEP under EBD. In May of that 6th grade year, they have that initial IEP, and the team determines that this local therapeutic day school would best meet her needs and meet like their definition of what a least restrictive environment is for her. So this
is the therapeutic school part of their school system, or is it like?
I think it might like for us might be considered an NPA, but it's local.
Okay.
So it's not like a long travel.
Insert sound effect for new acronym or new. Acronym NPA.
Oh, we haven't used that one yet? Non-public agency, which is a Washington term, I think, right? But essentially a residential or a non-public school setting that's still meeting the educational obligation.
Okay.
Is that the best? Did I do a good job with that?
How else should approved by OSPI.
But this is California, so...
Yeah, so like I'm saying for us, it might be considered an NPA, but it is local. So it's not like they're busing an hour and a half to go to this school. It's in the same very, very large town that they live in. City, I should say.
New York.
If this were in New York City,
New York,
sure.
California. Okay.
New York, California.
So in this therapeutic day school, placement would include 30 hours a week of academics, 1 hour a week of one-on-one mental health therapy with a mental health clinician, and then 5 hours throughout the year of parent counseling, and 1,800 minutes a week of mental health and behavior interventions with a rehab specialist. So it's like, in my opinion, it sounds very cool and very comprehensive, and like what an amazing opportunity to have in your community to have access to. And as it like my first thought in this is with an initial IEP, they're saying like, yeah, she needs so much. Let's give it to her. That was my thought. I don't know if you guys have other thoughts.
That rules. 1,800 minutes a week of what?
Mental health and behavior interventions with a rehab specialist. Now that might be like considered concurrent or something.
It's got to be concurrent because I just did the math. It's 30 hours. And so that other number was 30 hours. And so that just must be, this is what her programming is going to look like. Okay.
There's also there was OT and accommodations and they included a recommendation of ESY so she could continue year round and maintain the level of services.
Yeah. It's a crazy cool amount of
That's
initial support.
very
Yeah.
robust.
So right before this meeting where that's what they're offering, parents had placed her in a wilderness program for a couple of weeks. What was that, Stefan?
Like a couple of weeks, like a camp.
I think it was a therapeutic wilderness program.
Like
They
a get
pulled
out and
her out of
connect with
school.
nature, as opposed to like Scared Straight wilderness program.
Well, the court documents did not document what kind of wilderness program. They did name it, which I will not name on the podcast, but so we could look it up. But I think the intention of the wilderness program is she's not doing well. This is May, so school is, I think, still probably going on. And so let's do something while we're waiting to figure out what next steps are. So she's at this wilderness program. So she's gone during the end of this IEP process. After she completes that and is about to come back to school, parents decide to place her in an out-of-state residential facility. So they've denied this day program and have, as parents, placed her in a residential facility. So this is a 9 to 12 month program. And immediately once she gets there, they file a complaint against the district alleging a denial of FAPE for prior to her becoming eligible on an IEP.
Had they requested
Not
any of that? Was there any information about her not going to school or blowing out of her school placement or?
Not that was documented.
So they privately placed, and then they said, you didn't provide FAPE, so now we need you to pay for this residential.
So they at this point haven't requested them to pay for this residential. They didn't file a due process. They just filed a complaint saying you denied her FAPE in 5th and 6th grade, and this IEP is coming at the end of 6th grade.
Okay.
So what is
speculating? Maybe they didn't take this other therapeutic school because they were disgruntled with the school district because they had some prior complaints. Is that maybe a fair guess?
I don't think so because we'll get to it, but I think that they genuinely feel like she needs wraparound support.
Gotcha.
And that's why they placed her in this residential. However, the question I had is, can you complain about a denial of FAPE if they've never been even evaluated for an IEP?
No, so she wasn't evaluated for her initial evaluation until 6th grade, and they're saying that you didn't provide FAPE in 5th grade?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I think they're filing under, they're saying you didn't do child find.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what,
okay.
Right? Like
that would make sense.
That makes
you
sense.
didn't do this in front of the issue.
And now look at where we're at, kind of thing.
Well, and I don't know if parents requested things and there was enough evidence that the child needed to be child found, basically. But it's very interesting to go back before.
Yeah. So,
and they didn't disagree with the eval.
Not yet. No.
And you're saying that
they're going to.
Spoilers.
The school that California put this child in was a day school, and the parents are saying, no, not outpatient. We need inpatient. We need overnight, not living at home.
Yep. So
is the big difference.
And out of state. So they placed her in Oregon, and they live in California. So I don't.
Kid.
I don't have a lot of details about the complaint because those would be separate court documents than this due process. But I do have there's a settlement with that. So I'll get to that in a second. So in November at this residential, the residential is doing an IEE essentially. And that medical IEE gives her diagnoses of ADHD, I think complex ADHD, a tic disorder, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, and major depressive depressive disorder and generalized anxiety, which she already had that diagnosis. So the anxiety is, they're like, yep, we agree with that one. And here are a lot of these other labels. So again, remember, she's in 7th grade now.
Did they share that with? Did they get a
They did
release of information and get it? Because the parents essentially pulled the kid out. Now there's not on the school radar.
Yes. So she is continuing to show, this IEE says she's continuing to show significant depression and anxiety, mood variability, and the suicidal ideations. But then by January, the residential is saying she's stabilizing in this program. This has been really good for her. So then they have an IEP meeting back with the school district, and it now family saying, well, she's also had this eating disorder. She has a history of sexual assault. You guys haven't taken that into account. So district says, we didn't know that. We would love a release of info with your residential setting so that we can take all of this into account. The residential setting, like she said, she's not ready to return to that comprehensive gen ed setting, but they recommend a therapeutic setting with direct instruction and intensive therapy to develop self-regulation and coping skills.
I've heard of a pretty decent NPA
program that happens to be right there
in their community. So this residential program is only up to a year. So the district knows that, right? Like she's going to be coming back. It's January. She started this program in like sometime over the summer. So they're holding IEP meetings knowing that she's going to be returning. And they offer like, great, your IEE, we agree with it. Let's place her in this therapeutic day school. Parents in January say, we want her to finish out this program, so we're denying your placement for right now, but we'll come back at the end of the school year when it's time for her to transfer out. So in February, they settle with that earlier complaint and they agreed to do another evaluation because I agree with you, Darcy, they probably we're saying they didn't meet their child find. So they say that we'll do another comprehensive evaluation once you do come back so that we can make sure that we're offering all the appropriate services with these like changing needs since her absence in her last eval. And then it included like updated ROIs and some other stuff so that they could offer FAPE.
Man, I gotta tell you, just like based on what you've already shared so far, like this school district's kind of rocking it.
Well, it's California. They have attorneys at every, I mean, I don't know if it's LA, but they,
but
if it is.
It shouldn't be that. They started off without the attorneys and right. I mean, in good faith, they had like, let's talk about this therapeutic placement. Let's get her going in here. Let's consider the information. Like they really have been very responsive to taking information and considering a placement, I think.
It does sound like they definitely seem to have the right intentions too. If they're saying we want to make sure we're providing all of the services this child needs, like they're saying, they seem to have a good,
even to be like meeting with them in January when she's not even there. She's not going to be back for several months. Like, I agree. They are doing a lot of work for this kid that's not even theirs anymore. Really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You would think that they would have just lost complete contact and not known anything. Mm-hmm.
So sorry, give me a second. I lost my notes because I stopped looking at them.
Leaving all of this in, clipping this and turning it into my ringtone.
So they continue to meet. They meet 2 more times in that school year before she's supposed to come back. And every time they're offering for that placement to be the therapeutic day school. Now, I don't think that they're giving a lot of like choices and options. I think that they're saying, yep, come on back. We have this spot ready for her based on our eval, based on the residential's eval. Like this is our placement, right?
Predetermination. Sorry, I just had a
there's
thought.
and
But is it predetermination if they've gone through a bunch of stuff? Or are they literally, is that where you can get into trouble with predetermination if they've done some work, but they've agreed to do an eval later down the road and just assuming that this therapeutic regional placement is going to be the right one? Could that
But they
get them
have
into
the
some hot water?
recommendation.
Yeah.
So
We might
I
be
don't
jumping
know.
ahead a little bit. Maybe Anna needs to.
Well, that's always,
bring us
every time we've
in.
talked about predetermination, I guess there's been a lingering thought in the back of my head that's like, how do you prove that? You know, like, how do people actually get in trouble for predetermination? I don't need an answer for this right now, but I guess that Leanne saying that made me think, well, maybe this is a spot where that would be pretty concrete, is they've made this recommendation before, and they're continuing to give this recommendation, but they've said, hey, we're going to do another eval. And so like you could get into some hot water there. But yeah, I guess I've just always wondered, how do you actually get in trouble for predetermination? But again, don't need an answer. Just
well, I think like when I've like textbook predetermination is we filled out the IEP and here you go. It's not a discussion. It's just this is what we're going to do for you. I mean, again, that's like a very black and white version of predetermination, but that's like there's no discussion. There's no parent input. It wasn't a team meeting. Like we just decided and this is what we're going to do. To Darcy's point, the fact that they have a recommendation from this outside agency of what the placement should be like they're already taking into account, I would think they're already taking into account something else. So it's not, I guess, I don't know. Now you guys are just staring at me, so I'm second guessing myself.
It's okay
Wrong.
if that's not the route I went. I just was starting to wonder if that's the route. You know, we're trying to predict things here. Something goes wrong. We know that.
Yeah. So they're meeting a couple times. So before she's even coming back, district is offering this school, family saying, nope, we like residential. District's like, okay, but come back and we'll give you the school. And family says, no, we want residential. So they're going back and forth with them. And now they're starting to say, she's making progress. You guys should be funding this. We shouldn't be paying for it. This is what is going to benefit her the most.
Even though the residential placement has said she should go back to.
Well, they didn't say she should go back. They said she would benefit from a therapeutic placement, which they are.
Oh, okay. I see.
So they didn't recommend day treatment. They
didn't recommend a like specific type of placement outside of it. Should be therapeutic with direct instruction and coping skills.
Should not be going back to the general education setting.
Right. Shouldn't be going back to high school or middle school, whatever, and just thrown back into a school.
I gotcha. Okay.
He needs a specialized placement, but it didn't say residential it didn't like specifically name that. So this now continues for another school year. This back and forth. So now
she's another year.
Yep. So now we're in April of 8th grade. So now she's in another residential parent placement.
So move to a different residential because the other one was only a year.
Correct. Okay. And school or I'm not 100% sure on that detail. I know she's still in a residential. If they just extended her programming or if she went to a different one, that I don't know. But so now a whole nother year of back and forth of, hey, we have a really great spot for you. Nope, we want private residential. Now they file for due process. So family is saying day school is not appropriate, and you as a district are not considering her changing social, emotional, and safety needs. You're not providing the right placement, and you are the services that they are talking about are social, emotional, behavior, academic, transition, and safety services within the school programming. So they're saying like there needs to be more counseling. There needs to be a health and safety plan to address her eating disorder. She needs trauma-specific therapy for mental health concerns, all of that type of stuff. So parents are saying she needs continuity. She needs 24/7 supports of a residential program in order to access her education appropriately. District, well, what do you think district argument is?
They didn't give
never
him an
gave him a
opportunity to
chance.
try. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
look at all the stuff we're doing to try to meet your needs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So district is saying this therapeutic day program is specifically designed to do those things. It's like quote unquote promoting healing and recovery for mental health conditions. It's essentially like saying, yeah, your residential program seems so awesome, but the benefits of it aren't educational, and our obligation is education. And that's not like those things aren't necessarily required for FAPE. And they also said that throughout this process that the parents had been saying, we are going to keep her in this private placement. So really, like, we haven't had the obligations to do anything that we've been doing. We're just doing it in good faith. So these are I have their three biggest issues, and I want to hear what you guys think happened. Three big issues were, did they deny FAPE by failing to consider her changed circumstances? That was one question. Like, you're not considering her changed social, emotional, and safety needs. So you're denying FAPE in that way. They're also claiming that the district is denying FAPE by failing to offer appropriate placement and denying FAPE by failing to offer appropriate services.
Did they name the service? It seems like they're naming a lot of non-academic services, like you mentioned.
There's the social, emotional, behavior, mental health, safety. Those are the services that they're talking about.
I don't think the change needs piece, she's not even enrolled, and they're looking at the eval and talking about what they can do. I think they were really responsive to that. So I think no. And I think they didn't deny a placement because they offered a placement, and the kiddo never stepped foot in there to see how it went, or if they made progress or not progress. They offered to do another eval. So I think across the board, the district's in a good spot here.
I agree. I feel like the parents are choosing a setting and then wanting to go back and say, now you pay for it, without really even giving a good faith attempt at letting the district offer FAPE.
Cosign. I'd be if I disagree with Darcy and Leanne right now, I'm gonna look real dumb. But yeah, it seems like they're doing everything within their power. Even saying like, all right, yeah, when you come back, we're going to do another eval. Like, we're going to go through this process again. I think seems like they're checking all those boxes.
Well, and that part was part of their settlement with their prior complaint. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't like, necessarily like, yay, let's do another eval, but they're still like agreeing to do it. And by now now she's going to be heading into 9th grade. It'd be her 3-year eval anyway, because this all started in 6th grade.
Well, and she sounds like the kind of student that's going to get evaluated more than every 3 years. I mean, just she's got complex needs and changing. It sounds like, I don't know, did they mention anything about self-harm? Because with the eating disorder, yes. I'm guessing that she also was a little bit of a safety risk for herself.
Yeah, and it did. I mean, it was really sad. So I wasn't going to go through super, but they did talk about like the types of trauma that she was had happened to her, and went into a little bit more detail of what self-harm looked like. But I mean, she's got a lot. She's definitely not, there's a reason why she's struggling with all of these things for sure.
Yeah. I understand how a family would be really nervous to change anything if your child is engaging in that, and you're just really scared that you could lose her. I mean, yeah.
And the benefit of a 24/7 program is she's monitored 24/7, and you can't do that at home when you're working. And I mean,
and they said she was making progress at that residential facility. And so if you see some kind of growth are you going to have a hair trigger to move her somewhere that's less secure, less intensive? No way.
But also, is the district on the hook to pay for it?
So the ALJ ruled in favor of the district on every contested issue. They said they did not deny FAPE in any of the options. They had documentation showing their evaluations, and that every time that they had like gotten an ROI and received the things, they documented their review of it. So there was a lot of documentation that they were taking into account all updated information. And in all of those meetings, how the day school could still accommodate the student with those changes. So they found that the school's offering and staff were reasonably calculated to allow the student to make progress given the current circumstances, and that the like quote unquote evidence from the parents in this case were largely relying on parental preference rather than demonstrating educational necessity. So the ALJ stated that while the private programs do offer a lot more intensive non-educational benefits, the district is not going to be required to match those services in order to provide FAPE. So they did deny the request to compel district funding as well. I thought like this was. Sorry, go ahead, Leanne.
Well, it's just one of those ones that it's like, yeah, that makes sense, but it still doesn't solve the problem. You know,
yeah, that she still has a lot of needs, and I thought this was like an interesting case on the protections, but also limitations of what's educationally necessary.
Yeah,
because that can be good or bad depending on the needs of the kid, but also the evidence that's presented in it. So I guess I'm wondering what type of evidence would the parents have needed to provide to say it is educationally necessary to have a residential placement?
I mean, I think if they would have tried and put her in that setting and she wasn't making any progress and she wasn't able to actually, engage in her education, they would have had more of an argument, but they weren't willing to even try that, which kind of just leaves them with no case.
So
there are lots of times where we can't provide meaningful educational benefit for kids.
So potentially their avenue towards getting the residential program paid for by the district was to allow her to be put in that other therapeutic setting and saying it's not meeting her academic needs, because that's what the district's on the hook for. Yeah, that's tough, right?
I know, which sucks because it's like, academic. Okay, let's pull you out of what's working and let you fail.
Yeah.
And then we can put you back.
We don't know if it was gonna fail. That's the linchpin of that. But to Leanne's point of like, if I'm so worried about my kid staying alive and I can't monitor that at home, I do think schools can't own all of that.
So that was my other question is like, there's a lot of mental health in this case, which, and again, it's in California, but part of the reason I chose it is like, what does that obligation look like for us? When does mental health come into, or where are our bounds in Washington schools to accommodate those mental health needs?
I've had students where a medical provider has recommended the residential and it was paid for through the medical, through Medicaid or whatever. I don't know if this family was wealthy and they didn't qualify for any other source of payment or, I don't know California rules either, but not everything, the only avenue is not education, but, I don't think I answered your full question because I got stuck on the fact that I don't know enough about this particular case.
But like, what about Washington? Not this case specifically. What about Washington's obligation in schools to meet the mental health needs of students? Like, where's that line?
I don't think there's a nice straight line.
Yeah, no. I mean, we have to do suicide prevention
Yeah, no,
protocols and
that
stuff.
doesn't answer the question, Leanne. You can't say yeah and no. My kids do
She
that to
got
me.
you
I'm
on that
like,
one.
that doesn't work. That's not two words that go together.
We have things, but we don't have, yeah,
Because
straight up
And
like
it's
black
really
and white.
complicated, right? I think it becomes
Right.
when the school when the school day starts to fail. Like their mental health is impacting so much that they're not being able to come to school, or they're not getting access to things in school. I think that's when the school says, okay, what's going on? Um, but I don't think that's always a clear line.
Mm-mm.
And on the same sense, you could say, well, we say to the family that says, but that's not what happens at home. And we're like, yeah, but we're not home. Kids behave different in those two settings, and we can't plan for how they're going to act at home. We have to plan for how they're going to act at school. And so I think that's when those things converge.
Well, and it speaks to the like eternal fight, or not fight's the wrong word, but conversation around what's the school's responsibility and what's the parent's responsibility. Like in my world, we have uh the constant conversation is like cell phone use or media literacy or yeah, I mean, I guess kind of mental health around that stuff as well, digital wellness, or like there's always a big fight when you're talking about social emotional learning. I hesitate to put these two back to back because they always get conflated. They're not the same thing, but sex ed curriculum, right? Like what's the responsibility of the parent and what's the responsibility of the school? And because you're dealing with kids, that there's never a clear line on that. And I I I like drawing the line at educational impact, but it doesn't always feel good, right? Because like you take this girl clearly needs something above and beyond, and it does not feel good to say, well, that's not our responsibility. But the uncomfortable conversation is if everything was the responsibility of schools, then like that's just kind of not fair, and they're not equipped. It was a question I had on um the other case, Darcy, you're talking about that native language is as you're talking, it's like, are schools even equipped to deal with the needs of this kid? Like honest question, because I think sometimes the answer to that is no. Like and that doesn't feel good because teachers and school employees come to school every day thinking I'm going to meet the needs of all of my kids. That's my goal today. But sometimes the answer is we just don't have the tools.
But think how different this case would be if they were recommending this kid go to a regular middle school.
Yeah.
And they get mental health counseling once a week.
Which is still more than a lot of our kids get. Like how many we don't have social workers in our region, in our schools, really. Maybe some of our big districts do, but not really. Like there's not mental health providers in our schools around here.
Our I don't know, we don't have to provide progress in mental health. We have to provide progress in education, and access to education and mental health can get in the way. But yeah, I think that we do that most of the time as best as we can, but we're not definitely doing therapeutic programs to that level that this child needs. But
right. I mean, definitely not to this level, but there is, just to get in that gray area, there's what is it, Maslow's before Bloom's, right? Isn't that what we tell teachers all the time?
Right.
Is like you have to take care of those fundamental needs. And part of that is your mental well-being. And I did this workshop for a district in our region a couple of weeks ago on tier 1 strategies. And one of the things we dug into was brain science. How do you set up a kid's brain so they're ready to learn. And it's simple things like it can be simple things, greeting them at the door and making sure you have a seating chart, because kids are not scanning the room for physical and social threats, and so you're priming their brain to be ready to learn. And so there is mental health in tier 1, should be some sort of mental health support at tier 1 in every classroom, because it looks like structure and consistency and personal connection with your students. But when you get to, let's say this girl's probably around a tier 3, right? As your specifically designed instruction, schools are not always equipped. But I would think at that, I think it's a hard yes at tier 1. We're responsible for mental health support for students. And I don't know where you start to draw that line around tier 2, tier 3, where schools are just not equipped to do those things, but what they're on the hook for. Legally, I think there maybe is legally there is a black and white line, right? Educational impact. Isn't that the clear dividing line?
Yeah, but I would still say that's not a black and white, because you can make an argument for what's educationally necessary.
Yeah, that's where your line starts to blur into gray. But I think if you're going to say what are schools responsible for, it's a student's education, and then we can argue what an education is.
I also kind of think with this one, like my family lens goes, I can imagine being so fearful of losing my kid that I'm going to put them in a place where I can 100% guarantee that nothing's going to happen to them there. And our school systems can't always say that. We make mistakes, we have scheduling errors, we've got a sub, like all the things that happen in the school system that feel really scary for this family. And then it also makes me think, she's been in a placement for 3 years, and are we starting to think that this is something that maybe can't be fixed or is going to be medicated out? Because I think if you're in residential for 8 years, 7 years, she stays through high school, what happens to her then?
What? At the time that this case actually gets to court, she's in gen ed at the regular high school.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Oh, see, this is where we never know the actual story.
Then
Anna was sitting on that one.
So many questions.
Yeah.
You saved that until now?
I wasn't going to bring it up. I didn't think it didn't seem to pertain to the case much.
But it really does. Like, think of those things where we say, you can go, okay, I don't know if you're going to cut this out, but we had another case where we were talking about Best at Sacred Hearts, and they said 5 weeks. That's it. That's the end of what we do. And then after that, we get a new group or new students, and systems aren't necessarily made for kids to stay that whole time.
Well, and you don't want them to, right? Like, isn't the idea behind inclusion is that you're addressing the needs of a student with the hopeful eventual goal that they are a productive, contributing part of society, right? And so you don't want to isolate a kid, and you don't want them fully in a residential, even if it's currently working. It's there's this.
Was she being?
Have you you ever watched The Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
They make this joke in one of the early seasons that is like, the scientist says, I've got this, I've solved the problem of like infinite energy or something. And the problem is it only works with spherical chickens in a vacuum. And the joke is that like scientists will come up, like theoretical scientists will come up with like these plans that work, but they only work in a very specific use case. Right. And if that's the case, if like they're only doing better in this very specific setting, then that's treating the immediate need, but not necessarily setting up that student for long-term success, right? So shouldn't the goal of every residential placement be gradual release and transition back? And maybe it is, and I'm just uninformed in that, but
it's almost like we've been talking all week long about how helpful a transition program would really be for kids in a therapeutic setting. Stefan, you obviously haven't been a part of any of those conversations, but the three of us have talked about it every day this week.
It's going to happen.
I'm just fascinated. Did this child do well in public high school?
So this is in, like, it gets to court in August of 9th grade. And I don't even know if school had started. Like, she was enrolled in gen ed, and I don't, obviously, again, it's after the case, so I don't know what happens, but yeah.
That is an interesting
I wonder
wrinkle.
if parents ran out of funding too. I mean, like,
but then if she's in the high school, they didn't take the offer of the therapeutic day placement.
Yeah.
Even if they ran out of funding.
If that day placement took high schoolers, which I'm guessing there was an option for that somewhere.
To me, that sounds like the residential placement did what it was supposed to do, and she was stabilized and ready to go.
And maybe she wanted to be back with her peers. That could have been I'm going into high school, fresh start. I want to be with my friends. I want to,
Yeah. Yeah. That would be wonderful for everybody.
2 in a row, I choose to believe.
Thanks for tuning into Spedsplaining. If you have questions or thoughts about today's episode, we would love to hear from you. Head over to our links in the show notes where you could drop your questions, join the conversations, and connect with us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode if you found it helpful. Until next time, keep learning.